What would you do if the world was ending and you could relive the same day every day to try to stop it? Personally, I'd just watch TV. Because this movie has been out for so long, I'm not going to worry about spoilers. Spoiler warning. This is your spoiler warning if you haven't seen the movie and want to give it a shot. Tom Cruise is interesting in this movie because he kind of plays the same character that he always plays, but then he kind of doesn't at the same time. He's a little bit different at the start of the movie because he's a bit more of a jerk type character. And I really like the first sequence where he's trying to get out of being sent to active duty. But then I feel like it sort of drops and it's a little bit, his character is a little bit mundane after that until we really get into the time loop. And you're kind of just waiting for the time loop to happen. I feel like the movie meanders a little bit to getting you there. I know it does have to set up all these things, so maybe meander is the wrong word, but it just doesn't really compel you to want to be interested in the start of the movie for its own sake. You know, it's interesting, you can compare this movie to Groundhog Day a lot, and in that movie I feel like you're not just waiting for the day to reset and for the premise of the movie to start, because Bill Murray's character is so interesting and compelling. I think that the way Tom Cruise is used in this movie works well. I do think that I prefer him either when he's playing a little bit more against his type, but I do appreciate the use of, like, he's very much kind of not what he normally is, and then he gradually becomes more of it, so I guess you get to appreciate it more. So obviously, for a Tom Cruise action movie, I think this is my favorite of Tom Cruise being an action star, except maybe the only one that would compete with it would be the first Mission Impossible. I mean, yeah, like I was talking to a friend about this, I think the roles I prefer him in are the roles where he really, like, does something quite against type, like he does in Tropic Thunder. I can't say that this is a flaw in the movie, or that even it doesn't work, because I guess this is skipping over detail that isn't super relevant, but I was wondering how exactly she, like, is teaching him stuff, because it just kind of skips over, like, how is she teaching someone who forgets what they learned at the start of every day? Not forgets what they learned at the start of it. How is she teaching someone who she doesn't know where their beginning point is at the start of the movie? And the movie kind of skips over that, I feel like, as a point of tension. And I feel like that could be a missed opportunity, although I understand why you wouldn't want to go too deep into that. Yeah, I'm not sure if I, like, buy them as, like, love interests. I think it just works just because he is going through the same thing as her, and he is sort of, like, actively probably becoming the person that she would want him to be, and she has gone through that journey of becoming that kind of, like, ultimate soldier type person who's selfless because of what she's been through with going through the same day over and over again, having to fight these creatures. So I guess that does work. I just felt like sometimes I felt like their chemistry was. It took a while it didn't seem like that was where it was going at the start of the movie, and then when it does, it sort of feels like almost a different movie, which I guess that is kind of one of the strengths of the film, is that, like, it is that you feel like it's going to spend most of the time just in these two settings of the army base and the beach, and it kind of, like, ends up, like, going in drastically different directions. I guess kind of, like, building on that theme that, like, Groundhog Day does as well, of, like, how different things can be depending on how different your actions are. You know, and I think that it's so similar in Groundhog Day in that he becomes kind of like the opposite of what he was at the beginning, of the selfish person he was at the beginning of the movie, to the extreme, like almost to, like, an enlightened degree. I think that works a little bit better in Groundhog Day, but maybe that's why they didn't play that up, of, like, him being quite, like, knowing everything. He becomes the perfect soldier, which, like, in Groundhog Day just kind of becomes like an enlightened person in general. But this is just kind of like the perfect committed soldier by the end, which is obviously the opposite of what he was at the start of the movie. I guess that is, like, an interesting differentiating thing from Groundhog Day. I feel like I've trashed this movie actually quite a bit. I like this movie. I feel like the action really does work. I feel like there's really clever ways they play with the time travel element of, like, him screwing up things that characters are able to perfectly get right in one go. In most action movies, they can have him fail at because, we're going to reset it, so they can kind of play with our expectations in that way. There's no, like, major flaws in it, but there's just these little things that I feel like make me question it a little bit. Yeah, I just feel like they could have played up him being a jerk more, him being more of a deserter at the start of the movie. Like, they could have found more ways for him to try to, like, spend more time trying to get out of it I'm not sure. One more criticism, and then I feel like I'll sing the praises of this movie more because I feel like I haven't given it its due in that respect. It does feel like a cheat that the day resets at the end of the movie, where like it didn't really explain that killing the Omega would reset the day, and it just felt like an excuse to like have a happy ending. Although it did wrap me up in it, where like it does kind of play with like how much it seems like this is just the end, and how hard it is for them to finally kill this thing at the end of it. I just think that this movie is just inherently different from Groundhog Day in that he never gets to really like enjoy reliving the same day over and over again, because everything he does ends up failing ends up having to fail because he's fighting this thing that also is reliving the same day. But yeah, I think that Tom Cruise's character, the journey of it is fun. It plays the repetition up in a way that I think is different from the other movie, but clearly is like taking inspiration from it in a good way. I think that this is the sort of premise where we're sort of taking from Groundhog Day isn't necessarily a bad thing as long as you can put your own twist on it. And I think that the end of the world plot, the sci-fi elements, is really good. And I think the fact that he falls in love with her does make just enough sense. I just think that a lot of the scenes where it seems like where he refers back to as being something where he did it, where he did fall in love with her, the movie kind of skips over. Another thing I did enjoy about the movie was how them showing him seeming more powerful, I think, as the movie goes on. And another thing I think it takes from Groundhog Day, but it's just kind of inherently different because he's a soldier, and we're seeing all these people that sort of should know things that him know things that he doesn't seem like he should know. And for some of that, at the start of the movie, it's like we get to see those beats that he's repeating, so we know along with him what it is. And then as the movie goes on, it kind of like skips over them and almost puts us less in his point of view to show how like powerful he's becoming. And I think that that's a really like effective technique. Ellen Bond's character, I think she does have a good performance. And I enjoyed her in the movie. I feel like she's quite like sympathetic. I do feel like the movie skips over the fact that she like left him to die at the beginning of the movie. I felt like they should have. Maybe that's why I didn't buy their chemistry, is that it feels like they should have had a little bit more of a conversation about that. So yeah, I guess that's the main issue, is the start of the movie. I do ultimately find his character sympathetic, even when he's like being a jerk or being a deserter, because I think anyone would be in that scenario. So they just so I don't know if it even needs to be that. It just needs to be something that he is like at the start of the movie that maybe you could change. It doesn't have to be him being a jerk, but just something that is inherently interesting to watch, even if you don't know he's going to change. Emily Blunt's character is really sympathetic, and I buy them as like co-soldiers together. Even that, I think they should have had a conversation about like her leaving him to die at the start of the movie. It almost feels like it should be at the end of the movie. So overall, I'd give Edge of Tomorrow 7 out of 10, maybe 7.5 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I think it's got great action. I think it plays with the time travel element really well. I think the arc of its main character works really well, and I think seeing the sci-fi element works really well. There's some conveniences toward the end, and I think it's got an undercooked romance plot in it. The arcs in and of themselves make sense, are enjoyable. There's enough to enjoy about this movie that even though I think there's a bit that's like kind of clunky in it, overall I think it works for me, like pretty strongly.